hear
Good.
you very well.
Excellent. Excellent.
What
Well,
airport?
yeah.
Where are you?
I'm
What
at
air?
I'm at Boston Logan.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
flying. I'm actually flying to Vienna today.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And they moved. I was supposed to fly out at 10 in the evening, and then they just uh I emailed you. I just gotten the notice that they canceled that flight, and then they moved me to this flight. So
Ah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Hi, well,
okay.
really nice to meet you.
Good meeting you. In these circumstances, I'm so glad that you're able to do it.
Yeah, pleasure, a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's fun, because it's a small group
Uh-huh.
and we just talk
Uh-huh.
about
Excellent.
your brilliant book and
Well,
different.
you're a brilliant book. You're the one responsible for this. So,
Right, but yours, I took another look at your this one.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Every story it was just brilliant.
Thank
I'm
you
not
very
going to
much.
say any more because I'll sound over the top superlative, but it's just a wonderful book.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for choosing that story. The teardrop, which has a special place for me. So I'm happy about that. And feel so honored to be in this anthology.
Well, I'm honored to have you in it. One of the things I have to say, a personal thing that got me to choose it, when I was a teenager, I was living in Harlem for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, my voice is going. I still have a little COVID thing.
Oh no. Oh.
No, it's okay. I'm okay. It's just still here.
Yeah,
Um,
that a lot. The voice has been this lately with COVID. I'm to people I talk to have throat issues, voice issues. Yeah,
right, it stays for a
yeah,
little while.
yeah,
But at any rate, I used to go up to the cloisters. It
yeah,
was my refuge.
yeah.
Very few people were there at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. And when I saw,
Mm-hmm.
one story that I've never seen a story about the cloisters
Yeah,
or
yeah,
with that as a setting.
yeah, yeah.
So I had to choose that
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
one.
Joanna, I enjoyed that story also.
Thank you.
Yes,
Alice, right?
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Nice
Alice
to
is
meet
on
you.
Long Island.
Oh, you really? Oh my gosh. Wow.
all corners, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I did enjoy it. And I could really picture the little girl having to need to touch. I
Yeah,
could just
yeah.
only because my daughter always had to. And if you said to her, now why are you touching that? And she would say, I have to.
Yeah,
Thing was making her do it,
yeah. Isn't that interesting?
but it
Yeah,
wasn't in the cloisters.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Wow.
that's good because that would have been a real problem for her if she had.
You know?
No, I never thought of touching anything there. It
Oh,
is a museum after all, so
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
not to do that. And I was quite a bit older than this girl in the story.
Uh-huh.
Here's Meredith.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Uh, Meredith?
Sharyn, are you going through each store? Is each author
More or less. I think, well, there are maybe 3 or 4 authors who, for whatever reason, can't do it.
okay.
So I've been able to get other people to cover for them.
Wow, that's amazing.
It
It
is.
is amazing.
That
And
it
Wow.
would be a kind of archive for the anthology now, right?
yes, but also for the authors because it's a way for you to talk about your story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
But
don't know.
Sharyn, yeah, but that sounds like a very big job getting all of this coordinated in addition to the whole book itself.
And the experience as a reader, this is Meredith, it has been quite magical. This has really been fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
That we could spend really rich time talking about each one.
Mm-hmm. Such a great idea.
Yeah.
And great and really wonderful to see the anthology being recognized with these
Yes,
nominations. Yeah.
I really am grateful for that. Yeah. I had to share that news with the authors because without the authors, of course, there's no anthology. So I had to, that was you, the authors, including you, were the first to know. Meredith, are you going to not show us yourself?
No, I'm not ready for prime time this morning.
We're a relaxed
But,
group.
but that's sort of irrelevant. I'm here to talk about the story and learn a little bit more about you, Joanna. I lived in Boston for 25 years and the New England area. So I see those are your roots.
Absolutely. I grew up in
Very cool.
Connecticut. I'm
Yeah.
in Boston, Logan Airport, right as we speak, actually.
Ah.
I taught at Emerson College and I lived in Lexington for
Oh
a
my
while.
gosh, incredible. My daughter just and son-in-law just moved to Arlington.
Right next door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I'm just getting to know that area. Yeah. Yeah.
Where did you live in Connecticut?
I lived in the Fairfield County area, but now I'm in Stonington. So I teach in Rochester, upstate New York, but
That's quite a distance.
it is quite a distance. It is. I'm on leave this semester. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in North Stanford for a long time.
Oh wow. Wow. My mom
And I
was a
lived in
school
West Hartford
psychologist.
yeah, I lived in
I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
West Hartford.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
wow. Wow.
Yeah, so I don't think we're just from Seattle.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, neat. Wow.
Hi, Tamara.
Good morning.
Tamara is the co-leader.
Hi.
It's so nice to meet you, Joanna. I'm so excited to get into this story. So,
Well, thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you
great.
for having me. Yeah.
thank you so much.
And then
Yeah.
just to, warn everybody that I am in an airport business lounge. So who knows what could happen?
When's your flight? When do you have?
5:30.
Oh, so you have some time.
I have some time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I mean, we'll board at probably 4:30, but yeah.
Oh, we'll be, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a little over an hour.
Yeah.
We do this. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Sharon. Hi, everybody.
Bob, did you think you saw the painting at the cloisters?
Yes, did you really think you
Actually,
saw?
I really, my sister's best friend's family are multi-generational supporters of the Met, and her friend has the painting.
Oh,
I've been wondering.
now you know
It
the
was
answer.
given to them as a reward as a thank you for their multi-generational support.
Hi, Chuck.
That's a joke, everybody.
I think they seem to know that.
Okay, good.
We hope it is. Otherwise, you're publicizing the theft.
It's
Chuck,
the
are you there?
the what's
And-
next part of this.
And you're being recorded as you talk about
Right, but I
exactly.
hope that Tamara, when she does the videos, will not start until we actually start.
through.
Oh, yeah. I always edit like 10 minutes off.
Oh, good. We can say
Thank-
anything now.
I don't know where Chuck is.
He's
This is
there.
Charles Johnson. He's another
Oh,
there
MacArthur
he is.
Fellow, and he's
Hello,
also
absolutely. We've never, had a chance to talk here. This is wonderful. I'm honored.
I am too. Your story is wonderful.
So is yours. So and Sharon's. Wow. It's so exciting. I'd love to hear from both of you about your stories too.
this is your time. You're the one.
But
Everyone
maybe,
should have-
I'd love to talk too about the concept that's behind the anthology. So
Oh, okay.
the idea of what's next and change and
Well, that's, I think if all of you saw the interview that I did, I put something in that having to do with some of the concept, part of the concept. Anyway, and that is if you have a question, what's next? There's no one person who can answer that. So that's why I was looking for really diverse stories, diverse authors from various backgrounds and ages and points of view, all kinds of things to see how they would interpret what's next without giving answers. It's up to the reader to figure out the answers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, Ava.
I
I think she's there. Ava is a lawyer. We have writers. We have an actor.
Oh,
We
lovely.
have literary
Wow.
people.
Exciting.
And a person who's interested in the arts.
Excellent.
But we'll see if she's coming on. Maybe not. Okay, I think this might be everyone who's going to be here for now. It's a little bit after 11. Hello, Ava?
Hello, hi. Finally, I'm getting in.
Okay, all right.
Good to see you all.
Okay, maybe we should get started so that Logan Airport doesn't cause any strange interruption. Well, we've been talking to Joanna. Anyway, let's get started. Joanna Scott is the author of 10 novels, including Arrogance, a PEN Faulkner finalist, The Mannequin, a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, and Follow Me, a New York Times notable book. She's also published collections of short fiction, including various antidotes, Everybody Loves Somebody, and Excuse Me While I Disappear, and this is where Teardrop is. Her awards include a MacArthur Fellowship, a Lannan Literary Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, the Ambassador Book Award from the English-Speaking Union, and the Rosenthal Award from the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Joanna Scott is the Roswell Smith Burroughs Professor of English at the University of Rochester. So, Joanna, maybe you can say something about your story or the book.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And as I said earlier in the informal conversation, I'm just so honored to be in this anthology and really intrigued by the title of it. I was thinking as I was preparing for this that probably at least recently I've been thinking that the premise behind every work of fiction is a what. And for me, it's a what if. What if a little girl peeled a piece of paint off a painting? What if a book became unreadable? What if something in history happened that's not recorded? So it's that what if that excites me about our genre and leads to what's next, I think. With this story is part of the collection that Sharyn was just referring to, that each story has to do with some kind of lost work. My original title for the collection was Unreadable, which I liked. I thought it would be fun to have a book called Unreadable. And, you know, if a critic said, this is such an unreadable book, they'd be right. So, but the editor didn't let me keep that. So I found myself in that, you know, as I have had a kind of organizing principle for the collection, looking for those various what ifs that involve things that might be lost, things that had disappeared. In some cases in the collection, books that are no longer legible or readers who can no longer read. I was thinking a lot about text actually, and the changes in text in our own culture. So that gives you a sense of the whole collection. With this story, I was really interested. One, I love to write about children, and I want to bring children into fiction and make them, interesting, vibrant characters that, not necessarily for a children's story, to give the child sensibility some vivacity for an adult reader. And in this case, the child here, I was thinking, what happens to a child who is still innocent enough, who just wants to make everyone happy in a world that is really screwed up? And how does that child, and a child who doesn't even know her own boundaries, what happens to that child? And then the specifics of the story came from just a painting that wasn't at the cloisters. Actually, I probably shouldn't say where it was, but just a painting of a weeping Madonna with a. When I looked at it, I just was so struck by the texture of the paint on the canvas, and immediately the thing that came to mind was, wow, what if one peeled off that little job, how the painting would change. Do you remember the those penny candy things where you take sheets of paper and peel off the little dots? That's what I was thinking of, really. So that thinking of the story within the collection, and then thinking of the story in response to the painting was behind the creation of it. And I'll add a little anecdote about my own museum experience. I had a short stint as a museum guard at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and back in the 80s. And I was guarding Picasso's, I was supposed to guard, like, just say very attentive in front of Picasso's Woman Ironing. And somehow, it was a very crowded gallery. Somehow on my watch, someone bumped the painting and I didn't notice. And then I looked at it and the painting was hanging on, had almost dropped to the floor. It was hanging crooked on the wall. And I was so nervous that I didn't say anything to any of the other guards or any of the manager. And the manager came through at the end of the day to check everything. And he looked at the crooked painting, the crooked Picasso, and then looked at me. He said, "What happened?" And I said, "I don't know." And so I was demoted to I came back, and the next day I had to guard the handlebars, the bull's head handlebars. If you know this, what Picasso took handlebars and a bicycle seat, put it on a wall, and called it a bull's head. And I had to guard that painting, which was very high up, so no one could touch it. But everybody wanted to ask me about the bull's head after that. So I know that there were no alarms back in those days. So
Right. I remember the Museum of Modern Art was one of my favorite places to go. And you could get very close to the work.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, there were no alarms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Close enough to bump it. Yeah.
Right. And if anyone doesn't know here, the cloisters are part of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's kind of I don't know, would you call it a branch or just yeah.
It's their medieval, much of their medieval collection is there.
Right. Right. Wow, you've given us a lot of the background. I think I've seen, when I read this, I saw so much else. How we deal with memory, how we deal with our own perception. Do we actually see things that we think we're seeing?
Mm-hmm.
A lot in this. Actually, I'm going to let me see if I can find it. When I took another look at your collection,
Mm-hmm.
this jumped out at me. This is from Dreaming of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
The more Vincenzo reads, the more he loses track of what should be the clear black border separating truth from fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to me to be one of the aspects of a lot of these stories. Like, how do we
Mm-hmm.
know what truth is?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know what we're making up? How do we know what we've actually perceived? She doesn't know.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious for other writers who work in this genre of fiction, I to what extent are we learning from fiction? We can pin learning to facts, to nonfiction easily. But what are we learning from fiction? I'm always thinking about that. And I think that's been part of the history of fiction from the first story ever told. You know, a story's told for entertainment purposes and educational purposes, but we can't pinpoint exactly what we're learning from a work of fiction. There's not, a fact. So okay, Charles has a hand up.
Well, I'm intrigued by the question that you're raising.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people have drawn a distinction between fact and truth.
Mm.
What we get from fiction through the experience of drama is the truth of a situation. It may not be factual, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the meaning, the truth of the meaning of the experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's one reason that we turn to fiction
Mm-hmm.
for transforming our perception,
Mm-hmm.
liberating our perception.
I like that.
Also getting beneath the facts
Uh-huh.
to truth, which could lead to wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's always it's full of uncertainty, and I think that's part of the truth. That it's slippery, it's dynamic, and that's what the genre captures, I think. And Sharyn, you started off early in our conversation uh, in regard to the title of the anthology, What's Next. There's a lot of responsibility readers have, right? To interact with a story, to think about it, to think back, to work creatively with a story. And I do think the genre gives us the opportunity to do that. I also think it shares a lot with theater. If you've ever had the experience of, in particular, a live performance of theater, to something really powerful, you're just totally absorbed, and you come out of the theater into the street, and it's like you've entered a new dimension. Do you know that feeling? It's a wonderful feeling, and Charles, I think that has, you use the word transformative. I think that's the potential power, at least, that just the feeling that we've been transformed, that we can think in a new way, think correctly. I'd be a little hesitant about that. I'm not sure that I want to propose a correct way of thinking, but can I spur readers to think in a new way, to be freed up a little bit? I would hope that, and I love that idea of the transformative effect that meaning has, and that has something to do with the truth, but it's really hard to pin down.
Well, this is
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
should hand.
Yeah.
Sorry. And this was actually something that I was talking with some friends about this week, because I'm primarily in poetry, and that's just a completely different, method of telling stories. And I was saying that, way back when, that the people who had the wisdom were the prophets and the seers, and they were the ones who were only able to speak through dreams and visions. And that will come into what we're doing now, that not a lot has changed. And
Yeah.
so it's the fiction, the stories that we're telling, the high art fiction that is not entertainment. And that's how we learn about ourselves, is through these metaphors of emotion. And where is emotion in this? Is how she's feeling at the very end. She feels betrayed by what was told she didn't experience. And it was the same as, like, if we erase things throughout our life, if we're told that we didn't see what we actually saw. Like,
Yeah.
did the drop ever exist? Did the grief ever, hit so hard? And so I think that it's really necessary for these stories to be written in this way, so that you can reflect on yourself without it being a factual, textual self-help book of saying you're going through grief and this is what it looks like. And these are the tips. And it's so clear cut and it's so black and white. And it's like, it's never black and white. And so it's like, this is the really, I think, the ancient way that we process just the human condition and the human experience.
There's so much packed in what you have said there, so much. And I'll say I've lived a life very close to poetry. My late husband, James Longenbach, was a poet, and we read each other's work backwards and forwards. And so, and he has a one posthumous collection that I've been bringing into it will be published in July. So I feel very connected to the world of poetry. And I love that you brought stories into, you described it as a different way of telling a story. I love that. You also mentioned the way we think about emotion, and that is so important as a reader. And I feel that I'm only becoming aware now of how my emotional life has been, to some extent, artificially constructed, hopefully in a good way, by encounters with art. And sometimes not a good way. That I think back on myself as a young writer and my dedication to modernism in particular, that it was a way of feeling. As a reader, when I was reading, say, Beckett or Woolf or the Kafka and Borges were more playful, but they really Camus, say, as a young writer, I was sure that our, existential crisis couldn't have been worse, that we were, all of us, were stuck in a kind of a purgatory of just emotional numbness, and a great artist would help us to explode out of that. Everything seems so intense that, and what I more and more think is that, wow, that those artists really influence the way I feel, the way I felt, that the culture, I think, constructs that to some extent. And I think this, in the construction of emotion, I think it if we start to really think hard about that, we wonder, what emotions belong to a culture that's not ours, or what emotions have we taken in that are artificial. I think there are a lot of them. And so that I'm trying hard as a writer now to be very delicate with emotion, and to really welcome skepticism from a reader, to question belief, Um, I want readers to be, I don't want to infringe on belief, but I want to be thinking hard about what we take for granted in our beliefs, and that's infused with emotion, I think. So this idea of, the when we represent emotion in fiction, that is something we can learn about and think about. And I'm just, it feels like I've only recently become aware of how that is a constructed thing. So there's, pieces of what you said so eloquently, I'm responding to in in a piecemeal fashion, I fear. But Charles.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by what you're saying about emotion because I'm a practicing Buddhist, and Sharyn also is. We're in different traditions. I'm Zen, and she's more Tibetan. But one of the
Interesting.
things that I find myself doing all day long is interrogating my emotions and feelings. What feelings and emotions do I have that I was conditioned to have by society, by friends, by family, by the church that my parents went to? How much of that, how conditioned am I? And how free am I? Is the other question about that. And to do that as an exercise every day is to find oneself in a kind of epistemological, what shall I say, gray zone. You have to look at your feelings again and say, do I really believe that? Where does that come from? Is that my father's thought? Is that one of my teachers' thought?
This is absolutely what I am. I think I need to explore Buddhism clearly. That's you find that in a great tradition. That I keep asking myself that whose thought or whose feeling is this? Yeah.
No, I think it's beautiful. I think your story, by the way, is beautiful too. It's perfect.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's I return that to you too.
I'm going to let someone else talk.
Yes, Stephanie. Yes.
I was going to say what I thought about it from a different point of view of the I wants of character, the acting point of view. I thought what was so important was how Jody made you feel.
Yeah.
The character of Jody. And it was pure innocence and joy. Everything she did, her very existence was just a joy, and just the giggling contest with this on the train, that was great fun. And then when she saw the painting of the homeless man, for example, and giving him a cookie and defying her aunt's idea that he would reject that, and he loved it, and how she opened up people just because of her innocence and joy and wanting to help, which was interesting that you said that continued throughout her life. And then the trying to fix things of sadness by the paint with the eye. And that wasn't, she wasn't being a vandal. She was trying to help the lady.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You have so captured what I was after in terms of that character. That is just an immense pleasure for me to hear. So thank you. And it's hard to write about joy, isn't it?
Very.
There was a sadness on literature. There's not a whole lot of joy in it.
There's a subtle sadness that you brought into it at the end when you talked about the that she was 65.
Yeah.
And
the
sadness of the author or the storyteller of going back to the cloisters and trying to find out what happened to the painting, and being told that it, quote, never existed in a sense. And an incredible, it was very lonely, very sad.
That out of, it's a sense of, trying to insist on joyousness that as a possibility in a world that's very tough. And
it
so
questions reality.
Yeah.
Question of reality
Yeah.
is highly overrated, which is my
Yeah.
favorite.
Absolutely. Yeah, the some of it is, just watching children, remembering childhood, trying to I just acknowledge that there is in without sentimentalizing that position of a child and just wanting, just so grateful to be alive and wanting to celebrate that and thinking that everybody shares that. It's a really a wonderful thing, and you described it in a way that it's exciting for me to hear as an author.
Thank you.
Arthur?
Yeah. So Joanna, thank you for coming on to this session. Do you have a model in your real life for this character?
In mostly in my experience as a writer, I draw bits and pieces. I tend not to base, even I actually write biographical fiction and will use the name of an historical character. But even then, I'm pulling from lots of different sources to create a character, to make that character new. Where did I just read this quote that literature's not experience, it's an ordering of experience. And so that felt right to me, that it's important to acknowledge the difference between a real person and any verbal representation of that person. So does that, the simplest answer is lots of different sources, some autobiographical, but some, I love reading Dickens, for instance. So, in Dickens representations of children, I find much to just excite me as a writer, and I'm sure that's coming into the mix too. So the formation of a character for me, and I don't think that's true for all writers, and the other writers, I'd be curious how you'd answer that question. But for me, it's multiple sources, multiple influences. And then that allows me to add and create and gives me a little freedom to do something else that beyond my own memory or my own perception of a singular personality.
Right. I agree with you on that. My novel, Dancing with Langston,
Oh,
for
yeah.
some reason, a lot of people think
Wow.
that it's totally
Oh
about
my gosh,
Langston
that's
Hughes, but it's
absolute.
not really.
Yeah.
And that's you use these public figures, so to speak, for as you said, for ordering the reality that you're creating in the work itself.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think Chuck does a lot of that in the stories, and he did, and his novels.
Well, for instance, and for both of you, were those characters, your main characters, were they in the stories in the anthology? Were they? Can you pin them to a person?
No, no, I can't. When you were talking about children, there's another story. I'm sorry, I can't remember the title, but it's another story in this collection that has to do with children who find, seems like, cave paintings.
Yes, that's the limestone book. That is the
Yeah,
first.
that's right.
Yeah.
And they're very excited about it, want to show other people, grown-ups, but the grown-ups blow it up.
I know. I know.
Yeah, you
The
did.
oh, that is it. That's the one of the probably the saddest story in the collection. The idea of some great ancient work of art being inadvertently destroyed, and in doing that to destroy lives as well as what happens in war. So so Sharon's referring to this story in which children discover an old cave painting in hills of unspecified area in Europe, and then the I don't want to give away the story, but it becomes a place of refuge, but also a place that is vulnerable during the wartime, and the it's harsh what happens.
Yes,
Yeah.
we leave it at that.
Yeah.
The, you were mentioning literature, but that is an example of how you're also saying, what's the value of art generally? Because even with the story Teardrop, we're dealing not so much with literature at all. We're dealing with the art. What is how do we respond to that art? What's the value of it?
Right.
And that seems to be going through this collection.
Yeah, I feel we might in this world where everything is digitized, we tend to forget how easily things could be lost, and so that is something that I kept thinking about. But things could easily be lost, and we fill our cloud with thousands of photographs that with a flip of a switch might disappear. The present, and is this true? I don't know. Is the present has never been more present, it seems to me, that we're so focused on the here and now, that historical memory or preservation is vulnerable, it seems.
But isn't that one of the joys of art? Because I think art is digitized. I remember teaching a filmmaking class to a group of students in the Caribbean. And one of the trips I did was a painting that was in Government House. And the assignment was that each one was going to tell a story with that photograph, picking the kinds of shots they would use. So it's basically all of us are this way. When you go to a museum, what pulls your focus?
Yeah.
Both looking at that portrait of the woman with the teardrop, maybe some of us wouldn't even see it at first.
Yeah, right.
It's what you look at, what pulls your focus and interest in everybody's perception. That's why my reality is overrated. Everybody's reality is different.
Yeah. Many years ago, I started, I'm a terrible artist myself, visual artist, but many years ago, I started the habit of bringing to museums, and also when I travel, sometimes when I'm in just a coffee shop, I bring a notebook and a pencil, and I sketch. And that's the way I see things. I look at a painting and I sketch a little portion of it, and I see it. And it changes the way there's going back to our earlier discussion about the transformative power of art. If we look at it in a different way, or it forces us to look at it in a different way, then suddenly I'm seeing, wow, that line continues without breaking. Or I try to copy something, I think, wow, that's hard to do. And if I had just been looking at it without the pencil in hand, I wouldn't have seen that. So it does just what you're saying, we all look at something in a different way, and we all have the potential to keep looking at something, or it forces us, or not forces, it encourages us to look at it in a new way. But that a museum is a place where it's the the effort that is there to preserve, to keep safe and artists' vision. Yay, I'm glad that they're open to the public, and that is a wonderful thing. It seems, everything seems so vulnerable. That I find myself perhaps fretting over the vulnerability too much, but that, yeah, museums give us that historical memory.
And it's interesting that of all museums, you picked the cloisters.
Yeah,
Why would you talk about why that?
Well, it's
It's a very impressive place for a child. I remember getting lost there when I was 5 or 6 years.
exactly. I think I did too. It is a kind of for an American, it feels very far. It's an immersive experience, and the sense of you just being it's just being taken elsewhere when you're in there. I love that you got lost too. That's
I was with my
As
cousin.
I said, I used it as a refuge.
yeah.
It was wonderful.
I can imagine.
Sunken garden there,
Yeah,
sort of. We're
yeah.
having a Baroque concert of some sort, and everybody was sitting. And my cousin and I thought somebody had died, so we started crying. That's how we got found.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a great memory.
If she had gotten lost at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, it would have been a different story to me. But the cloisters,
and that story's been written. That famous book about the child, Mixed Up Files, that children's book that I loved as a child, Mixed Up Files of Mrs. What is that? J something freaking dollar. It's a wonderful book about a child who goes to live in the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Yeah,
It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
Tamara, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so there was, when you were talking about forcing us to look at things in another way, the part that actually stuck out to me the most was the third to the last page, when she was saying regarding that day in June, when I treated my little niece to a trip in the city while her mother was in the hospital, I would rather forget how hard it was on my brother-in-law, how hard I was on my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wince at my vindictive charge. I am embarrassed, oblivious I was. That was, that stood out because that was such a self-reflection. It's like, you're looking at so many things in the story. You're looking at the brother-in-law, and then of the niece and the boy, and it's like, it's just so many lenses, and you don't graze over them. You actually spend
That's a very good perceptive catch, because it's all the story of the child is encased in the narrator's story, and that has to do with the experience of alcoholism and a kind of lack of sympathy, and she as narrator absolutely learns something, and recognizes that she her beliefs, or her the emotions she took for granted were maybe not appropriate. So it's not in the foreground. It's if it were a painting, it would be off to the side. That her own self-reflection. So thank you for bringing that up. I was thinking a lot about it. Yeah.
That would be such a just a change. That's a pivot in the story. Then after that, everything changes. All of the perceptions change.
Yeah.
So I loved that part. That was really the most helpful part. Just going.
Yeah. Thank you. Charles.
Could you speak a bit more about the interplay between visual arts and literary arts. You take a sketchbook to, I don't know, see more, to slow down and see more clearly
Mhm.
what is before you. I'm wondering about how this impacts your process, creative process as a writer. You have two different art forms here, right?
Mhm.
Creative,
Mhm.
visual, and literary. And I for certain artists, I think that a good strong line um, has its analog in prose, if that makes any sense.
Could you say a little bit more about that? Uh, are you saying specific artists then?
Well, I'm a
Connect-
cartoonist, and
Right.
it was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Mine has always been a big part of my life.
Mhm.
And my own style, I know it is very strong, bold lines, outlines. But when I'm writing fiction, I want that same cleanness and economy.
I see.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. That is so interesting. How do you, you want that cleanness and economy, but what you're doing in your fiction is not, I see such a difference between the cartoon and your prose, but so it's a cleanness, a sharpness of diction, you're thinking?
Yeah, and no waste. No, if
Yeah,
that
no
makes sense.
waste. I
No
see.
waste. Every line
Interesting.
has been
Huh.
polished to
Huh.
something like perfection. I mean, there's a way in which the eye moves around a composition, right?
Uh-huh.
And you see the coherence um, of the composition and how every part reinforces every other part. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering if in the creation of literary art, you have that same feeling, if it's an instinct that when you're writing, that
Yeah, that is
you
so.
describe it.
I actually haven't thought about this. I know from early on I my the triggers for me, the things that have gotten me thinking imaginatively have often been visual art, pieces of visual art. In fact, right now I'm about to fly to Vienna, which as a 30 something years ago, I knew nothing about. But I happened to see a painting at an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art by Egon Schiele. And it just sent me off. And I ended up writing a novel about Schiele. In a, I look back and think, wow, I don't think I do that now without having more expertise behind me, but it was really fun to do as a young writer. And it will be powerful to go back after all these years. I haven't been back to Vienna, so in a couple hours I'm on my way back. But to try to think about it stylistically, as you've been describing, that's fascinating. And I, 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 I'm not sure how, what is there a form of visual representation that has led me to make stylistic choices? I don't know. I don't know. I,
Just a
I
question.
yeah, no, it's really interesting. I will be thinking about this a lot now. Um, I guess I'm aware of uh, my own stylistic concerns changing over decades, and a kind of a more of a spontaneity, a looseness in the prose, perhaps, as over time tightened up a bit, or I'm more uh, uh, attached to economy, as you were speaking of, the economy of line, not
Right.
wasting words.
The economy of poetry.
Yeah, yeah. My early influences, in terms of prose, tended. I was talking about the modernists earlier. I was deeply, to some extent, the 19th century novel as well. The English novel, in particular, though our American precedents like Melville and Hawthorne, they got into my head. So I and there's a wildness and a love of excess in some of these writers that I found attractive at a certain point in my life, and I think that's changed a bit. But I still, I try to, when I'm thinking about my options stylistically, I try to stay as open as possible. And I wonder if it makes me, I don't have a style almost. I guess, I worry about that I'm always looking around and trying to think, what's
Well,
interesting, what sends me off.
You're saying your style changed over time because probably your personality changed. Style would be an expression of the person and the personality at that particular moment. And as you, I know, I think I probably tend to want to be simpler as I've gotten older, simpler and director, more direct in my literary expressions. And I think I was somewhat different with earlier novels and so forth.
May I ask a question as a non-writer for the two of you? If when you look at a blank page or at your computer or whatever, that day, do you look at a blank page and you say, today I'm going to write a poem, or today I'm going to write prose, or today I'm going to write a short story, or today I'm going to write a novel? Do you have a form in mind before you start writing?
That's for Joanna.
But she disappeared.
She disappeared.
What happened?
Well, she's in a business lounge
Is she on internet?
at Logan Airport. So I don't know what happened. I don't think.
Get cut off?
I hope it wasn't my question. She ran away.
No, I'm not seeing anything from her. So maybe she'll try to get back on.
Yeah, she may just have been dropped, so maybe she'll be able to get back on.
But meanwhile, Chuck, you can answer it.
There she is. There's Joanna.
Oh, good.
Sorry about that.
Off the hook, huh, Chuck? There
Sorry
she is.
about
Thought
that.
he chased you away. Sorry, but
here I am in the airport. I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but
that's okay. You're back.
yeah. Sorry about that. Anyway, Charles, can you reconstruct the last part of what you were saying?
No, it was my
question.
question.
Stephanie.
My question was about whether or not when you're looking at a blank page, be it on a yellow, whatever you're writing on, do you start by saying, today I'm going to write a poem or a short story or a novel? How does it happen?
Yeah, that's a really good way to ask that question. The experience of facing a blank page, and it's always daunting. And then honestly, lately it's been harder than ever. But I think there's something I have been a little technique I've been playing with. A friend introduced me to this. She calls it frenzy, and she sets a timer, puts the blank screen in front of her, timer for 15 minutes, and just boom, writes, just do, whatever comes out. And in 5 minutes, stops, and then takes the time to look at something else, that she's working on. Another piece of writing in progress. And so I tried that, and it's great. I highly recommend it. Frenzying. In fact, this is she's this woman, Holly Case, is an historian at Brown University. I'm going to visit her in Vienna now. Somehow the experience of what she calls frenzy, it captures the experience of writing, that we, if we look at the blank page and just go, whatever. That's a way to start, and then to step back and to be very critical, and then to let go. So that process is kind of what's working for me these days. That it's somewhat new as a method, but there's in some ways, over the course of my career, I've been just methodical about pushing through every day, following the thread I started, the starting something totally new is daunting always, but once you have a word, then there has to be the next word, and once you have a sentence, then you can have a paragraph, and once you have a paragraph, okay, now I'm seeing a chapter. So there's a way of kind of following the line that has been started. Starting that line is tough. So starting the line through a process of frenzy, through the action of frenzy, is a good way. I try it. The way the process works, as this friend organized it, you do it 3 times. You set the timer for 5 minutes 3 times. Just let go, and then set the timer for 10 minutes in between each of these frenzied expressions. And that 10 minutes, there can be a kind of clarity to the thinking that is achieved because of the loosening that happens. It's almost, you can imagine, it's almost physical. That I don't know if is there an equivalent in acting for a stage actor?
Yeah. Well, actors work differently sometimes, but if they're improving, this would be more like an improv than reacting to a script. But ultimately, for actors and for writers, you're storytellers. We're storytellers telling a story. So I was wondering, like, if I'm given something and I know it's a film script or it's a stage play or it's a monologue, I'm dealing in a form that's different. So as a writer, if I've got this great idea, how do you know, is it a short story like this one? How it could have been a novel. But you decided it was, how did you decide it was a short story?
Oh, in terms of the form, that really is the central part of your question, actually, the original question. That I guess I do have to be pretty deliberate about that, and more so in my later years than I was as a younger writer. I would start pieces as stories that then just got out of hand and they'd become novels, and the opposite would happen too. So less intention. I think one of the things in writing short fiction in particular is that I see it often within a collection. Maybe that's because I'm a novelist at heart. I like to see the interconnections between stories and some thematic continuity. And once I have a sense of that, then I will deliberately write a story and try to attend to ideas that are appropriate for for shorter fiction. With longer fiction, I more and more think of it as a puzzle to solve. I love the just the almost the neutral experience, emotionally neutral experience of fitting the pieces together and building something. I would have loved to have a skill, a physical skill that would allow me to do that, like build a table or something. I wish I could do that because I love to fit things together.
I have your novel, Excuse Me While I Despair, in front of me.
Yeah, that's a collection of
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
Right. I wonder whether your short story, A Teardrop, is part of this, or this is extension. I don't know, or related at all. This book is about the painting and the practice of the painter.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. That it's a collection of stories, and the teardrop is in that collection, right?
This is a collection, or yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, as I was saying, I try to connect the stories in some thematic way that makes them, it gives them gives a whole book a unity.
Hmm.
So
Does anyone else have questions? I was thinking of the way you're showing different perceptions. And there's one story, and I can't remember the title, but there are tourists in a place where it seems that a rather unfortunate government is being celebrated. I don't know how much of this to give away, but the perception of the tourists and the locals is so different
yeah,
in the
yeah,
same incident.
yeah, yeah. That's the final story, and that was written when I was in Bogliasco in south of Genoa. So I was as a setting very much in my mind. And the tourist sense, so it tells the story of tourists who are in this lovely place and want the pleasures of tourism while there's intense political turmoil going on that they're oblivious to. And we can, it is all too common, I think, as an experience.
Sounded very familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Though I said it in, a kind of elsewhere, unspecified time and place. Yeah.
Right.
That's
It's
a question. You made a choice for your character that she, at the moment when she realized what Jody had done with the painting, she covered it up in a sense. She didn't go to anybody at the time.
Yeah.
Why was that? Was that because she was afraid of being
because I
charged
thought if I were her, I would
Mhm.
walk away. I would have kept it. But I would, let's get out of here right now.
But then later she wants to have
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah. There's a fear, unwillingness to take responsibility, hoping that it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
and did it really exist?
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, how do we know what's real? That really is a big question now.
Yeah,
How do we know?
absolutely. The what at the heart of that, the what
Yes.
that's at the heart of that of your anthology.
Yes.
What is in this experience that we can hold on to, and let's be willing to think hard and stay open, and that openness can have great great repercussions for us as individuals, and hopefully is, I think this is part of the spirit of the book, is a society, you know, if there's a willingness to really reimagine experience, that creates something new.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we hope positive.
A positive, and that in this world it's hard to
I said we
be
hope.
attached. Absolutely, it is harder than ever
Yes.
to allow ourselves that. But let's do it.
Right.
So on that note,
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to say about your
well,
story?
you know, it's just been such a pleasure to talk to everyone, and I really appreciate the attention to the story, and again to being included in this really fine anthology, and to have all your comments, and I hope I can, if you assemble all these conversations, that would be just terrific for students, and so I hope I can see some of them myself, as in, you know,
I think
ones that I'm not involved in.
Tamarah is doing some of the, well, she's doing almost all of the videos. And I think some of them are already posted. How would
I have like 8 right now, and so I'm cutting through them, and so it just takes a little while to compile, and that is a skill that I have developed, but it's not my gift in life, and so I'm doing so the biggest thing is it just needs to be something that is nice and clean, but also that really emphasizes the conversations in a way that is beautiful to watch.
Oh,
And
great. Wow.
yeah,
Wonderful.
there's some, and so I imagine that eventually we're going to send off emails or let people know where it is, because
Perfect.
it's so lovely, just the loveliest conversations, this one included. And I know that it's like, if I was watching this as a budding writer, there is so much in this conversation.
Exactly. I think this will be so useful to students. So thank you for
Will
doing this.
this
It's
be
a
a
terrific idea.
YouTube channel, or where will it be posted?
Yeah, they're all on YouTube. I have a YouTube playlist. So
Oh,
Wow.
wow. That'd be great to be able to
Wow. Wonderful.
Yes, I didn't send out emails about it because you're still working on it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can send you, I'll send Sharyn what the link that I have to the playlist, and I have all this weekend free. I actually have it on my to-do list to just start catching up on some of the ones that we've done in the past few weeks. So
Great.
Good
Great.
job.
Thank
Way to
you.
go. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for including me, and for your patience while I sit here in the airport.
For your,
That
we're also
the,
grateful that you did this,
that,
given
well,
the
I
circumstances.
Thank you, yes.
yeah, I was worried, but except for that one interruption, I'm glad it worked out. So so thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure talking with everybody, and thank you again for including this story in the anthology, this very fine anthology. So I'm
Thank
on.
you. And have a
Thank you.
great trip.
Have a wonderful
All
Auf
trip.
right.
Wiedersehen.
Wow.
Yeah. Danke.
Have
All
a great
right,
time. Have
thank
a soccer
you.
torch for
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Joanna.
All right, thank you.
Is
Great
one
to
of my
talk,
favorite
Charles.
artists
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
Sheila.
Yeah,
And I
excellent.
go to the Neue Gallery every time I go to New York.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So, all
Thank
right,
you.
great.
Thanks
Thank
Thank you, everyone. It
you.
was
you.
great
Yep.
meeting you, Joanna.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Sharon.
Enjoy.
It's a real
Thank you.
pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.